introduce our keynote speaker, Peter Paik. For he's not only a teacher at university school, but he's a debate coach. For the last 11 years, 9 years, he has sent his student onto the Lincoln-Douglas debate. Now, personally, I wish all of our sports team cast, Indians, and Browns could have his batting average. So let's welcome Peter.
Say yes. Mainly because I had no idea what I would say to you in this keynote address. She said to me, well, you can talk about these famous Asian American educators, and even though I teach American history, I have to admit that I didn't recognize any of the names she mentioned. And I asked my wife what to talk about, and she said, well, just tell people why you came to Cleveland. And I came to Cleveland in order to be with her. But I don't know really how much you would get from hearing our love story. So I thought and thought and thought about what to say to all of you this evening. And what I came up with is this. It is truly a wonderful thing that you are a teacher. It is truly a wonderful thing that you are a teacher. That is the essence of my message for you this evening. And why is it important for me to say that? Sadly, in our society, teachers are not respected or valued very much. I would submit to you that there's no profession in America where there is a greater disparity between the value of the work and how valued the workers are, or undervalued the workers are. So it is easy for us teachers to forget how wonderful our job really is. So what makes teaching wonderful? There are a lot of things that I love about my job. I love to learn. I love that I get paid to read books and gain more knowledge. I love my field. I love religious studies and ethics and history. And I love discussing deep philosophical questions with my students. I love making lesson plans and creating curriculum and then trying them out and see how well they work. But what makes teaching wonderful is really none of those things. I know what makes teaching wonderful because I've had some truly terrific teachers in my lifetime. And I want to tell you about 3 of them briefly. The first was Ms. Baumgartner. She was my first grade teacher. I came to America from Korea when I was 3 years old, back in 1972. You think that'll work better? So I came to America when I was 3 years old. And when I got to kindergarten, I did not speak any English, and it was terrible. When I got to first grade, I spoke a little bit of English, and it was a little bit easier. It was a little bit less terrible. My first grade teacher, Ms. Baumgartner, truly showed that she cared about me. Even though the way that I dealt with my frustration at not knowing what was going on was by acting out. I got into trouble frequently, and throughout my first grade year, I must have been in detention at least once a week after school with Ms. Baumgartner. But what she did that was really remarkable was she would repeat with me the reading lessons that she had done earlier in the day with the whole class. And that's how I learned to read, in detention with Ms. Baumgartner. The second teacher I want to tell you about is my English teacher from 10th grade and 11th grade, Mr. Stoya. He taught me how to think and how to write. He was a terrific devil's advocate. No matter what students said, he would ask us questions and force us to think more deeply about our views. And he made us write so much. We not only had daily quizzes, we had journals to write, we had essays to write, we had a research paper to write. And miraculously, he would turn back, he would grade and give back to us whatever we produced, almost always the next day. And to be honest, I'm not that good as a teacher. It takes me many days to get work back to my students, as they will tell you. The third teacher that I want to tell you about is Miss Barbara Griffith, who was my speech teacher and my speech coach in high school. She worked with me after school and helped me to perfect the speeches that I would compete with on Saturdays. She drove our team to speech tournaments. And when we won, she celebrated with us, but when we lost, which was more often, she would console us. And it's because of her that I became a debate coach. Now, what all three of these teachers had in common was that they truly cared about my learning. They truly cared about me. They created a special bond with me that inspired me to care about my learning, that inspired me to produce the best work that I could in order to please them. And it is that connection that I will never forget. It is that connection that I try to create with my students. Now, I don't always succeed, but that is what I strive for. Because it's that connection that makes teaching so wonderful. It is the bond that you create with your students. It is your job to approach each student that you have with a kind of unconditional love. Now, it's easier to love some students more than others, I know. But it's often those students that are more difficult to teach that truly need your care and that will truly benefit the most from your work with them. And one of the hard things about teaching is that you don't always get to see the fruits of your labor. No matter how well you teach, you may not see the results. It may appear as though you're not getting through to your students. And let me close with a story from my first year of teaching. I didn't plan ahead very well when I was in college, so I ended my senior year with two choices. I could go to graduate school or I could become a teacher. And at that time, Teach for America, which is a program to get teachers into schools, was just starting. And I applied to Teach for America, and the truth is, they rejected me. And it was probably the correct decision to reject me. But I was very stubborn back then, and I was determined to teach. And I heard that in New York City, because there was a teacher shortage, they would hire anybody who had an undergraduate degree. So I moved to New York City and I walked throughout the city. I must have gone to at least 15 schools. And finally I found one where there was an opening. And the principal gave me a job and I got my emergency certification. But I have to say, that was the most difficult thing that I ever tried to do in my life. And to be honest, it was the first thing that I completely failed at. I had 25 third graders, and Fort Greene back then was not as gentrified as it is today. And almost all of my students were on free lunches, and they needed a teacher who was experienced, who had skills, who had training, and I was none of those things. So it was a disaster. And the worst part of it was that I didn't know how to manage a classroom. And so when students would misbehave, all I would do is yell at them. And that stopped being effective after the first day. So in February, I finally decided that I wasn't doing the kids enough good to make it worth my continuing to teach them. And fortunately, there was a substitute, a long-term substitute teacher at that school who could take over that class. And so I resigned my position, and I wasn't able to finish my first year of teaching. Later that spring, I got a call from that substitute teacher. She was taking the students on a field trip to the zoo, I believe. And she asked if I would come along to chaperone, to help. And I said, sure. So when the day came, I went to the school, I walked up the stairs to my classroom, and even before I got to my classroom, those 25 students ran up to me and swarmed me. They were a mob around me, and in my 25 years of teaching, I have to say that was probably my happiest day. Because even though I felt as though I had really done them a disservice as a teacher, they forgave me. They were telling me that I had taught them something. They valued the connection that they had with me. And I really appreciated their love. So, to boil down my message to you this evening, I hope you will take away 3 things. First, it truly is a wonderful thing to be a teacher. Second, what makes it wonderful is the bond that you create with your students. And third, that bond may be there even when it doesn't seem like it is. Thank you.